Welcome to the UK market webinar number 2. The webinar is held in terms of the project Health3-2-1, which is a project led by Tehnopol Science and Business Park, Business Turku and Sweaker. And today we are going to talk about entering the NHS and succeeding in sales and pitching. First, briefly about the agenda. So about 10 minutes, I'm going to introduce the project very briefly. Then the first speaker will be Anastasia Boltkova, who will give you an overview of NHS and its organizational structure. Anastasia is a UK market expert for life science enterprises. Then after 20 minutes, we will have another presenter, Michael Watts. He will talk about entering the NHS as he is a CEO and NHS doctor himself as well. So what is how it is for the life science enterprise to enter NHS, and he will also talk a bit about the strategies for attracting private capital in the UK. And 2:50, we will have Harald Leppisk. He is engaging storyteller and pitch coach from Estonia. And he will talk about how to build interest and trust in 60 seconds and how to pitch your business idea. Also, I will give you an overview of next steps of the projects. And by 4 p.m. Estonian time, we try to finish the webinar. I would kindly like to inform you that the webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be also sent to all of the participants in order of reporting matters. So, just very briefly about the project. Health3-2-1 is a project that aims to help life science enterprises from Estonia, Sweden, and Finland in expanding their markets into UK and US markets. The span of the project is 3 years, so it started in May 2024 actually, but we started with the real activities in October this year, and the project ends in April 2027. During these 3 years, we really tried to help Estonian, Swedish, and Finnish life science enterprises to export, to take their markets and their products to the UK and US markets, and we are supporting 35 enterprises in total. And the end goal is to achieve 15 active sales or contracts in these markets. So I would really like to emphasize, I have done it in the previous webinars as well, but I would like to emphasize that we are really trying to put together these personalized pathways for each enterprise that is participating in the project. So there are many enterprises, they are all in different stages. So we're really like looking into these enterprises that are participating, putting together the pathways, finding the perfect mentor for the exact enterprises. And yeah, I just really want to emphasize the personalization of this project. If you are the one who is chosen, you will get up to 20,000 euros worth of EU-funded support. You will have market-specific seminars and trainings. These seminars and trainings are already tailored, taking into account these enterprises who are participating. Also, at the same time, the coaching will happen. So we're currently gathering the best mentors from the target markets. So they are in several fields, and they will help you to get into the market. Also, we will have target export missions. The first one will probably take place in July next year to US. And the target expert missions are also monetary supported for each enterprise. And if you're chosen, you will get access to trusted local experts and partners, of course. And by the end of the project, if you need some help after the project period ends, we are not going anywhere, so the ongoing support is provided as well. Some words about the activities. We have had UK and US market webinars. Today is the second UK market one. And the last US market webinar will take place on Friday. If you want to register, here's a QR code you can take a picture of. And these webinars are open to everyone. We are really giving you this overview of the markets, the business culture, etc. And after these webinars are held, so in the end of this month, the enterprises are chosen. So the applying is currently going on, and the selection of the enterprises will take place in the second part of November. So the applying is opened until 11th of November, 5 p.m. Estonian time. And if you would like to apply, at the moment, then here is a QR code as well. So you can take a picture, and there's a small form that you have to fill in. But if you're applying, or if you have already applied, then after the 11th of November, we are going to look through all the applications and going to choose the enterprises in the last week of November. But I'm going to introduce the upcoming plans for you in the very end of the webinar as well. So I also would like to mention that if you have any questions during the webinar, then feel free to write them on the chat. And if you're writing them on the chat, make sure that you are writing to everyone, because you can write to me personally as well. But if you're writing to anyone, then the presenters can already see the questions by themselves as well. So here are all the contacts that you may need. We are very happy to answer all the questions. But let's stay in track. And the first presenter is Anastasia Boltkova. As I already told, she is a UK market expert for life science enterprises. She's currently working in Midas, where she works to expand the life science ecosystem in the UK by fostering collaborations with investors, academics, and the NHS. Also, she's a mentor. She supports UK and international small and medium-sized enterprises, and particularly in medtech and tech bio field. So I will stop sharing my screen. So Anastasia, you can go forward.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Let me just share my screen. 1 second.
We cannot hear you, Anastasia. I'm sorry.
Can you not hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No.
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Can you?
Yeah,
Okay.
everything is very good.
Me too. I can hear you.
Sorry, sorry, it was my mistake. I can hear you now as
So
well.
you can hear me.
Yes.
Don't create a heart attack here. Okay. So let me share my screen now. 1 second. Okay. Can you see my slides? Yes, you do.
We
Yes,
see that you
right,
started
right.
sharing, but it doesn't really show the slides, I think.
Oh, now it does.
Now, yes. Now
Yeah.
all good.
Thank you. And now you still see those, right? Perfect.
Yes, all
So
good.
Good. I will just minimize my screen 1 second. Right. So, hi everyone. My name is Anastasia, and today I will present and try to give an overview in 20 minutes on how NHS works. You might know that NHS is a large organization and it's kind of an elephant in the room, but hopefully it will be a good starting point. Just before we proceed, just a small short information about myself. So my background is translational medicine. I studied at the University of Manchester and later on I did an MBA. Currently, as mentioned earlier, I represent Manchester Investment Agency. So shortly, just a short introduction about the company. We are a governmental organization, and our job is to attract international and national investment into the region. We've got 4 main departments: healthcare and life sciences, advanced manufacturing and carbon, creative, digital and tech, and finance and business services. And our objective is to strengthen and expand the ecosystem of health and life science businesses in Greater Manchester. So I lead the team, and we're a really mighty but small team of 3. And how we do it is through partnership with investors, academics, NHS, governmental private organizations, as well as policymakers. So because we work so closely with the NHS, I guess that was the reason I was approached to ask to tell more about how NHS works. So I would say there are only 2 questions that the companies like yourself perhaps need to answer, and they are small, short, but they're big at the same time. So number 1 is, why is the UK? Why do you want to work with the country? I don't want to put you off, but it's question number 1 because you don't want to too deep and then to make all the steps back. So is it because the English language is easy to communicate? Is it 68 million population? Is it 350 languages that are being spoken? So that's really diverse for clinical trials. Is it strong academic network or key opinion leaders, regulators and policymakers? We've got a lot of them. Clinical networks, investors and funding, and one NHS. We actually have all of these items. And to be frank, 282 billion is invested annually to healthcare. So we're not doing too bad. So the question number 2 you need to ask yourself is, why the NHS? So this is, what is your main and your company's main objective to work with a healthcare provider? And you will see in a few more slides, because this is the main question here. Is it translating scientific breakthroughs into innovations or evidence generation? Do you want to run clinical trials or procurement? The reason it's the main question, and you'll see it coming up a lot, because it will define the sub-organizations of NHS you need to speak to. So just to give a short overview of NHS and just to go back to reality, who we are dealing with. Fact sheet. So NHS was born in July 1948. So actually, it's a 76-year-old grandpa. It was born in Manchester, and the objective of this was to treat single conditions. The organizations worked independently, so primary care, in Estonia's polyclinic homes, secondary care, hospitals, and community, everyone worked independently. Until 2022, when a new system was introduced called Integrated Care System, or ICS for short. So that includes your NHS, councils, voluntary sectors, and others. And the main objective of them is to improve health and care services and focus on prevention, better outcomes, and reducing health inequalities. So next time you think you are the only organization that can change the world because you are the most innovative, try to align and see where do you fit into that statement. So ICSs are divided into 2 parts: integrated care boards. So that's your primary and secondary care. They are usually responsible for questions like, how is NHS budget spent in the area? What is the better value for money, or what solutions are needed? Second half is integrated care partnerships. So they bring together your care providers, voluntary community, social enterprises, and so on. So they go just outside the box. So it would be schools, prisons, and so on. So they set up collaboratives with the hospitals, mental health services, communities, and wider network. When we want to zoom in into how integrated care boards work, you can see a map. Actually, there are 40 of them. Also, if you want to work with the primary care, this is a map of GPs. So perearstit in Estonia, or sorry, I don't speak Finnish or Swedish, but basically your primary care providers, it's a lot. And 1,200 primary care networks. So the question is it really one NHS? Clearly not really. So again, that's where we'll come back to what is your main objective to work with the NHS? Because if you want to translate your innovations into your breakthroughs into innovations, you need to speak to NIHR, Biomedical Research Council, and Clinical Research Facility. If you look to generate some evidence, it has research centers. Evaluation, that's for Clinical Research Network. And for procurement, that's almost like a different topic, but there could be several paths like innovation hubs, innovation networks. You can go directly to the hospitals, or you can work with the private providers. I should have said that earlier, and apologies, but NHS and DK in general quite likes a lot of abbreviations, but I'm more than happy to share those slides. So this slide actually might be quite useful because here you can see and identify where do you sit, where does your technology sit when it comes to innovation pipeline. As you can see, we provide a lot of support at the early phase clinical research between invention and evaluation, and less so at the evaluation, and adoption is more almost like at the last stage. Just to give a clear example and to simplify, I would say, the process. So I will focus now on Greater Manchester A because it's the region we're focused on most, and also it will just help to simplify because then it might be useful for you to apply that to all the other regions. So in Greater Manchester, we have Manchester University Foundation Trust, which is actually the largest trust in England. It covers population of 3 million patients, and they have a research and innovation team. And the turnover is 2.3 billion, so they're doing pretty well. The trust consists itself of 10 hospitals. I'm not going to go into details, but so that you understand. So this is in general a Greater Manchester map made of 10 local authorities. Yeah. Roughly speaking, this is the area that Manchester Foundation Trust covers. We've got another hospital called Northern Care Alliance, which covers more the north. So, as I mentioned, Manchester Foundation Trust is the largest trust. So they have capacity to have innovation team, which includes altogether more than 600 people. It sounds a lot, but actually, if you break it down, it's not that many because there are teams that are like specializing in IP and commercialization, innovation adoption, strategic partnerships. So that's your collaboration with academia and industry. Innovation district, that's attracting more companies being co-located. And we also have a number of strategic programs. I will go through them in more details in the next couple of slides. So again, we'll go back to a favorite question of the objective. If you are looking to translate your scientific breakthroughs into innovations, you need to speak to NIHR, Biomedical Research Center, and Clinical Research Facility. So what are these? They are all powered by National Institute for Healthcare Research, and the objective is to support collaboration between NHS and the universities so that we drive more innovations forward and, most importantly, translate breakthroughs into new treatment, diagnosis, and medical technologies. A few years ago, Manchester has been awarded 60 million pounds, and actually this is one of the largest cash injections outside of Southeast. Next one is clinical research facility sites. So again, if you're at the early stage of discovery and you're looking to do early phase clinical research, you want to get some proof of concept, you require some clinical support, regulatory and operational support. Again, this is the organization you want to speak with. Here you can see some of the hospitals located in Greater Manchester. These are just some of the therapeutic areas they cover, because Manchester Foundation Trust on its own specializes in 33 therapeutic areas. Some of the hospitals are very niche, like the Christie. It's the second largest hospital in Europe specializing in oncology. Whilst others, they might have more, they might have multiple USPs, or a certain area might be strong in several hospitals. So for instance, respiratory is really good in Wythenshawe, but it's also really good in Salford or dermatology. So again, this can be all done thanks to the help of NIH clinical research facilities. So how do they work? If the whole objective is to create partnerships, and the focus is the company, to make sure the company develops the solution that helps patients, and they work with the companies across several fields. So if you are looking for maybe PI and clinical academics, if you are looking to get support for clinical trials protocol, access to samples, or for instance, if you need to understand where do you sit with respect to what's your population and how commonly, for instance, that solution might be needed. We've got data scientists. They work really closely with the patients. So that's where your community comes in. And also they can support diagnostic and medical devices co-development. If you are looking for evidence generation, so you're slightly further ahead when it comes to invention, you want to speak to Health Research Council. It was actually set up pretty recently, and the objective is to generate evidence. There are about 15 or 20 or so around the UK. In Manchester, they specialize in emergency and acute care. Somewhere else, they might specialize in diagnostics and so on. So the objective is to inform clinical decision, improve diagnosis, optimize treatment, and most importantly, to provide the right care to the right people at the right place and the right time. The program is actually really popular because I guess of its design. So it is made of two clusters, clinical cluster and methodology cluster. Clinical cluster has two themes: community care that spans everything from primary care to the secondary research, and secondary research focuses more on quicker diagnosis to ensure that patients are diagnosed maybe at home, or if they're diagnosed at the hospital and treated, they don't come back. Theme number 3, it's all about scaling the challenge and health and economy. So it's to understand where do you sit when it comes to market analysis. And number 4 is clinical validation. So how to implement the science, how to really get it into clinics. And here you can see all the expertise that they can support with. So for instance, maybe you're looking for clinicians or academics working in your field, and then you would need a project manager who should be the project, so you could meet regularly with. We've got regulatory experts, grant writers, data scientists, to name a few. Next is for evaluation. So further down, when you need to evaluate your solution, you need to speak to a clinical research network. Their objective is to improve health and wealth of the nation through research. Yeah. So how do they do that? Number 1 is funding. In fact, they are the largest funder of health and social care research in Europe. Last year, in 2020, a few years ago, they injected 1.22 billion into the field. Secondly, is to invest into world-class expertise through skill delivery workforce, so education and supporting projects that do translational work. Thirdly, is partnering through patients, because in the end of the day, they're our end users. Attracting, training, and supporting best researchers to tackle health and inequality. So that's your PhD's master's project. So for instance, when a company wants to partner with academics and clinicians, they can get a funded PhD student. Collaboration with other public funders. So they work again with the charities to lobby if it's maybe a more neglected disease or to promote research. Funding applied global health research and training, so that to make sure that the solution meets support, that the people in middle income countries can get the solution. And these are the 15 networks. And most importantly is that the research can be done within the NHS and non-NHS settings, as well as in schools, care homes, hospitals, prisons, and communities. That's where it comes into play, the division into ICBs and ICPs we were speaking earlier. We can do academic studies and commercial studies. And these are just some of the therapeutic areas that they cover, so pretty much everything. Now, perhaps maybe one of the most attractive parts, or maybe something what the company is quite commonly interested in, how to sell or how to procure into NHS. I highlighted here a few paths. I'm conscious that we have Michael Watts speaking later on, and I will to absolutely his capable hands to discuss it in further details. But I will focus on innovation hubs and networks. So when it comes to innovation networks, I'm sorry again, but the UK is divided into 15 regions, and each region has its own, almost like an agency, and their job is to support companies getting access to the NHS. So in Manchester, for instance, if you speak to Health Innovation Manchester, they will be able to identify which hospitals in the region, so not in West Midlands or Yorkshire and Humber, just in Greater Manchester, need your solution the most. Maybe they will help to support you with the analytical study. Is there a competitor? Is there not? Is the solution needed to begin with? And so on. So what do? Is they identify innovation and to improve specific problems. It can be done, as I said earlier, in a healthcare or private setting or academic settings. They empower innovators to and those developing improvements to further validate their ideas and get them, most importantly, in front of the right people. Because you need to know who you need to speak to. You need to speak to ICBs because they're the decision makers. They're the ones who work together. And then they can advance their uptake. So they can help and spread your technology to wider regions. If somebody is interested, I'm more than happy to speak to the companies on one-to-one basis. I will share the way it works. I can share with you a link straight after the call. You have to fill in an application form. It's called Nexus. It's nothing to do with Nexus in Leeds. It's called Nexus, but also know Leeds ecosystem. You fill in the form. It's pretty self-explanatory. I will ask about your competitive analysis, who are you trying to work with, and most importantly, how you help NHS. You definitely need to focus on that question. They review your answers, and within a month they have to come back to you and then set up a call, and then they can discuss it further with you. The service is free, and all the services I mentioned earlier, they're all free. Number two approach is some hospitals, like for instance, the larger hospitals, they have innovation departments, as I mentioned earlier. And so we do in Manchester Foundation Trust. So we have a team in innovation adoption and strategic partnership. Again, if this is the hospital of interest, you're more than happy to share a link. You would have to fill in. It's different from the one in Nexus, but quite similar application where you highlight the advantages of your technologies over others and how you save the money and help the NHS, and most importantly, the patients. And if we have a call, I'm more than happy to again notify our colleagues just to make sure your application doesn't get lost and maybe fast-tracked. So let me know if this is of interest to you. And I will leave the now the conversation capable hands of Bloom Health, who can tell how to get access to the support that they provide. And if anyone has any questions, happy to answer them now.
Thank you, Anastasia. Does anyone have any questions? We don't have currently any questions in the chat bot, but if anyone have any questions, feel free to open your mic and ask. Nope. Okay. If you will have any questions in the later phases, you can write them to me as well, and then I can ask them from Anastasia, or you can contact her straightly. But let's go on. Our next presenter is Michael Watts. As I already told, he's the Young Health Tech Leader of the year 2024. He also is an NHS doctor, Innovation Accelerator Fellow, and MBA graduate by background. Over the last few years, Michael has been the co-founder and managing director of Bloom Health, which is a digital health organization that collaboratively works with NHS trusts, universities, and small and medium-sized enterprises. So, Michael, if you are ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that introduction as well. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Amazing. Yeah, as I say, thank you so much for the intro and for Anastasia for bigging me up. I'm going to have to deliver now. So we've got about 15 minutes to really dive into what is quite a big topic. As with what Madly says, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me afterwards, especially if it's a question that you don't want to ask in a public forum. But I can also share some further insights after this short presentation. We'll skip over who I am. I'm a doctor. I still work in the NHS, but as Madly and Anastasia said, I'm also the managing director for a company called Bloom. We have been fairly successful in selling to the UK public sector. We also do a little bit of selling into the private sector as well, and we do a bit internationally. One of our key focuses is around supporting international organizations land and expand in the UK. We recognize how important that is for our economy, for job generation, and for collaboration as well. So this is why I wanted to talk to you today, is to really inspire you to come over to the UK. It is a scary market. I think healthcare as an industry is quite varying at the moment, but there's lots of opportunity here. We have some of the best funds in the world, some of the best universities in the world, and also some globally recognized hospitals as well. So the UK is a great place to build concepts, find partnerships, and then expand your business out of. Just a bit of background for those that don't know. Most healthcare is provided by the NHS here in the UK, which is free at the point of access. That's created a whole host of opportunities and problems in that you need to be able to sort of have a varying level of care provision across the whole healthcare industry, which is very expensive. We have staffing shortages, which has meant that not everyone gets the same level of care. And there's a bit of a postcode lottery in terms of the types of care you get, which has meant that it's opened up a host of opportunities for SMEs, innovators to come and fix some of these issues around operational efficiency. And we can dive a little bit more into that as well. And about 90% of all healthcare is funded by the taxpayer. There is a growing private healthcare market, which has opened up opportunities to work with insurance providers and the private sector directly. And that means that you've got more than one revenue channel to explore when you arrive here. There's some slightly more confusing NHS services. So things like dental and eye care is a bit of a hybrid model where it's part funded by the NHS and part funded by the patient. But again, if that's a specific market for you, then we can discuss that. And obviously, we spend a lot of money on healthcare here in the UK. We have a lot of services. We have a lot of international services that come in, and the government spends a significant amount on healthcare provision every year. We had some pretty, obviously, this is the same across the globe, but in particular, the pandemic opened up a lot of opportunity for innovation, particularly within the public sector here in the UK. It relied heavily on virtual consultations. As you can imagine, with it being such a big single organization, it procured a lot of new services, both consumable goods specific to the pandemic, but also after that, it held a lot of capabilities and technologies that it now uses in everyday healthcare provision. Things like virtual consultations, things like AI, robotics, and sensors are all something that now are much more recognized in the market. Obviously, the procurement is still variable, but we recognize as healthcare professionals their importance in delivering everyday care, which is a good opportunity for innovators. So one of the main questions we get asked is, how do you actually sell to the public sector here in the UK? It's not the most straightforward of processes. You'll often see that there are tenders available to be able to sell to the life sciences sector and the public sector here. It varies. The actual contract value is quite low before it needs to go to at least a competitive process. So usually anything over £50,000, so about 70,000-80,000 US dollars, will need to go to a competitive process. There are exceptions to that. So if you are the only person that can provide that service, if you are able to get a waiver because you've been working for that organization before or for a long time, there are exemption criteria. But typically speaking, if they're procuring something for the first time, or if it's a big contract, then you'll need to go through a tender process. And you can do that fairly straightforward. If you go on the gov.uk website, you can go on Contracts Finder, and you can actually set reminders as well. So if you're a remote patient monitoring service, you can actually set alerts so that when a contract like that comes up, it will alert you that there's something that matches your criteria. You can set them more vaguely as well. So you might have software as a service and healthcare as two keywords, and then you're just going to get hit with all kinds of opportunities. Then you can assess which ones are most appropriate for you. So that's one way. The other way is frameworks. There are a range of frameworks, and the main frameworks that you want to consider are the gov.uk framework. So that's run by the Crown Commissioning Service, or CCS. G-Cloud is one of the biggest digital marketplaces for products, digital products. And so being on G-Cloud is highly advantageous. There are more specific frameworks. So NHS, there's actually an NHS specific framework called Shared Business Services, or NHS SBS, and they're always opening up new frameworks. So it's really worthwhile having a look at those. There is actually a Workplace Solutions 2 framework open at the moment, which I think closes in a couple of weeks' time. So if you want more information on that, I'm more than happy to share that with you. Remember, one of the key things around this is that to win some, or to access some frameworks, or to access some funding, you might need to have a UK registered business. So again, start thinking about that if you haven't already. That just enables you to access lots more by way of funding and opportunities. And it doesn't take too long to register with Companies House, but obviously you need to make sure you've got all your legal documentation and bank details in place as well. But typically, as with most opportunities, there's a key to being persistently patient with the NHS. If they need you, then they will let you know that they need you, and you have to work with them to help them realize what that means. So if you're able to write a business case on behalf of a client, that's going to stand you in good stead, because if you can explain to them the return on investment for your solution, then they're going to value that. And especially if you pick up that resource requirement for them and write their business case for them, they'll value it, because everyone in the NHS is always busy all the time. So for them to find time to spend with you, it's difficult. So the more you do for them, the more they're going to appreciate it. So if you're good at, that was weird. It just said it was going to restart. Hopefully you don't lose me. So it's really important that you have a think about your sales cycle here in the UK if you're going to set up here or if you're already here, because if the sales cycle is long, you're going to need a big upfront investment to be able to manage the NHS relationships. The way to also think about that is diversifying. Of course, selling to the NHS is great. It's a real badge of honor and it's recognized globally, but you should also think about other opportunities. As I say, the primary care sector, the social care sector, so things like care homes, care at home, private hospitals. These are all other opportunities to sell into the UK market. The NHS is just one of many channels. It just seems to be something that everyone wants to do, but it can be challenging. The other sort of challenges to navigate, which are not surprising, and again, it's not specific to the UK, are things like regulation. Unfortunately, having left the EU, we now have our own regulatory standards, which just causes more complication. That it's very aligned to CE marking and FDA, but we now, if you're a medical device, have to also have UK CA marking. We think it's one of the easiest of the three. So typically, if you're already CE marked or FDA marked, it's going to be quite easy to retrofit your UK CA compliance. Again, it's just another thing to have to do, and we can support you with that. The other thing that you might want to achieve is DTAC. So DTAC, if you're a digital technology, stands for Digital Technology Assessment Criteria. It's specific to the NHS, although the requirements and the components are not specific to the NHS. They're very generic. It covers things like clinical safety, GDPR compliance, so data protection, cybersecurity. So these are all things that you will no doubt be familiar with. You just have to present it in a way that is recognized by the NHS. And you can start to see why some people find it challenging to sell to the NHS because they have such specific requirements. But we can support you with that, no problem. I've already spoken about some of the procurement challenges, and Anastasia has alluded to how fragmented the system is in terms of regional procurement processes. So every region has its own unique way of buying solutions. It's very difficult to sell directly to NHS England. So don't expect a one-for-all contract. That's something that could come over time, but you're probably talking years of building up a reputation within the NHS. Similarly, you can also win opportunities at individual hospital level, but that's going to be time consuming, right? Because there are lots of hospitals, 220 or so NHS trusts across the UK. So a nice middle ground is that regional procurement, the integrated care systems. Integrated care systems, or ICSs, sometimes referred to as integrated care boards, are regional procurement officers where they manage a host of NHS trusts. And that's a nice middle ground because that way you have a big catchment of opportunity and you don't have to go knocking on every single hospital's door. Again, ICSs and ICBs have specific focuses and priorities. So you're going to want to do your homework to make sure that your solution is the right fit for them at that right time. The NHS, we've already discussed this, but at the moment, the things that are important to the NHS are interoperability. So if your device enables or your solution enables better movement of data, that's important to us because we have such fragmented data storage. So if you can support with data sharing, that's great. Clinical efficiency. So if you create operational efficiency, i.e. you make lives easier for our workforce, you reduce down resource demand, resource being money, time, steps in a process. If you can clearly demonstrate that you can release that resourcing, then that's great too. Apps and wearable devices, so things that keep patients out of hospital, things that keep patients supported at home. These are all great opportunities. Obviously very competitive, but these are the kind of things that our NHS needs right now. Analytics. So if you are able to visualize data in a more compelling way, if you're able to accumulate data across a region or even across a nation, then that's highly valuable. And again, that plays into the interoperability requirements. And I've already mentioned about remote monitoring. In the private sector, there are sort of more specific opportunities. So again, this is about saving cash. So anything that makes private hospitals more cost effective, more environmentally friendly, that's what they want to achieve. Insurance providers obviously want to be able to support their population, so much more preventative support. So if you're a mobile app for nutrition, well-being, health intervention or lifestyle medicine, then payers, private medical insurance are going to want to hear about that. And they're becoming much more competitive as they become more affordable as well. So anything that they can give to their members to try and get them to switch is going to be highly attractive to them. And then, as I say, if you operate in the nursing facility, so care homes, residential homes, then again, this is about being able to support these patients in the community, prevent them going into hospital, keep them safe, and create a more cost-effective working environment for those care homes, because they are privately run and very expensive for the NHS to fund and for families to fund where they're not eligible for NHS support. Whenever you're introducing value to the NHS, it's always about demonstrating value. So here we have the drill. And the beautiful thing about a drill is that no one that buys a drill wants a drill. They want a hole in the wall. So whenever you're talking to the NHS about the value proposition, talk about the problem that you're solving and not necessarily about the solution. At Bloom, we only build software that has impact at patient, workforce, and organization level. If it has 2 out of 3, we might. But if it only solves a problem for a patient and not the staff or the workplace, similarly, if it benefits the NHS but isn't really patient-centric, then it's unlikely to succeed, because we want to see benefits at all 3 tiers. So really consider how you create a return on investment across all 3 tiers of that ecosystem. It's always important to do your homework before setting up in the UK. There are lots of organizations that can help you with this. We can help you identify your strengths and weaknesses in the market, what's working well in your local region, and then what can transcribe into the UK, but also what isn't going to work here. The commissioning is very different across our UK landscape. It's quite unique. And so it's really important that you know how you're going to approach the NHS before you do, because you only really get one chance with every stakeholder to get it right first time. I've already spoken a bit about regulatory compliance and how to register for a medical device. There's lots of free advice out there, and we can point you in those directions as well. I've also spoken about DTAC. It's really important that you have this right. And quite frankly, if you're able to speak to a pilot site or a client and just show them that you've done your DTAC compliance checklist, they're going to favor you over someone that hasn't, because they're ultimately going to have to do the work if you don't. So having this prepared is going to put you in very good stead. And I can share the checklist with you. It's readily available on the NHS website. If you just type in NHS DTAC, you can see the checklist there. Pilots are super important. So typically, even if you have local traction in your country or in another part of Europe, that's going to be great. But typically, other NHS organisations will want to see that you've already got some validation here in the UK, which creates a bit of a paradox. Because how do you get value for the first time without having someone take a chance on you? So that's where things like grant funding comes into play, and we can support you with the grant fund applications as well. I won't dwell too much on this because Anastasia did a great deep dive into some of the fantastic support we have here. There are lots of grants available at the moment. If you are supporting mental health in the workplace, then SBRI have a fund open at the moment, which is great. But there's also lots of other grants available that I can share with you. The investor market here is actually quite variable. It comes and goes. At the moment, because of the new government, there seems to be a bit of slowing down of investment. However, there are always angels interested in taking chances on early stage companies. So have a look at things like Cambridge Angels. They're a great network of high wealth individuals that are wanting to pump prime early stage companies. And then you have a great range of VCs as well that operate across the UK, Europe, and the US that are resident to the UK. And I can also introduce you to venture capital firms as well if that's the stage of the company that you're in, or if that's what you need to start your UK journey. I can help you there. Anastasia's already mentioned the health innovation networks. I can't stress enough to connect with them. And also, the caveat is that they won't do the work for you. You have to engage with them to get something out of them. So it's a two-way thing. And often different health innovation networks will have different focuses and priorities. So it's important that you explore multiple before deciding which one you want to invest your time in, because others might be better suited to you based on where you're wanting to work. And the other thing is sponsorship as well. Obviously, we have some world-leading pharma companies based here in the UK. And so if you, apologies if there's some background noise, if you are working with pharmaceutical companies or you want to work with UK-based pharmaceutical companies, then that's really a great opportunity. And they're looking to actively sponsor digital innovation as a way to amplify their offering away from what is traditionally pharmaceutical, so the pill. They recognize that the pill only gets you so far in the ecosystem, and actually that digital therapeutics is the new pill, effectively, which I would agree with, and I'm sure many people do. And data is going to be super important. Data is important through the life cycle of your product here in the UK. Being able to demonstrate efficacy and value for money before you get here is super important. Working with your pilot sites to capture key data that you're then going to use to grow here in the UK, and then sharing those insights to retain those organizations. I mean, this is all common sense, right? But we can't stress it enough, because once the NHS understands you, appreciates you, and gets value from you, then it's going to be a lot easier to grow within that public sector ecosystem. And we've done that with multiple solutions as well. So we can help you with some case studies around that. And build your network here. There's some great events, some great conferences. You know, that's how we've grown here, is all through word of mouth. You know, we don't pay for SEO and website traction. It's all about getting out here, spending time here. So do come and visit the UK and some of the great conferences we have here. And I'm also happy to make some introductions for you as well. So that's it. Slightly over schedule or slightly over time, but if you do have any further questions, that's my email, and I'd love to keep in touch with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Actually, we have 2 questions in the chat bot as well. Do you have time currently to answer them?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you can read them by yourselves as well, but I will read them to in the case of recording. So did you just said that medtech in the UK needs on top of the CE mark a local CA one?
Yes. So the caveat is not right now. So right now the CE mark is recognized, but I'll have to double check when the latest date is. But eventually, you will also have to have UK CA mark to be able to sell a medical device here in the UK. The CE mark was recognized whilst we were in the EU, and they extended that, I think, to the end of this year. But after that, you're going to need to also have UK CA marking to be able to sell a medical device here in the UK. Unfortunately, you can thank Brexit for that. Not that I'm here to share political views.
Thank you. And the other one is regarding the DTAC. What is a typical time until NHS completes the review of material we've submitted?
This is a contentious topic because it varies from hospital to hospital. Some hospitals are really hot on DTAC and won't let you operate without sharing that documentation. Others are really behind the times and therefore, won't even ask for your DTAC documentation. The question is, that kind of governance, that security is something that you as an organization should have anyway. So typically, if you have everything written and ready to go, they will review it in a couple of weeks and come back to you and say, yeah, this is great. That all looks good. You might slip through the net, which obviously isn't great from the NHS's behalf. But I would say that you want to come prepared, because if they do ask you and you don't have it, it looks a lot worse than them not asking you and you just happen to have it. That doesn't happen very often. More and more trusts, hospitals are becoming more savvy with what DTAC requires. And once they have your documentation, they should be able to get back to you within a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Yeah, the same Oscar just mentioned that it has been over 1 month now.
Okay. Well, they should get back to you. Again, it's about being persistent and patient. So give them a nudge. If you are having trouble getting a response from them, then I'm always happy to contact someone there who might be able to help if I know someone there to try and help push that along.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. Very
welcome.
great insights. And as Michael said, you really need to have the right way or the right words to sell to the NHS, and you have to get it right in the first time you try. We are going to change the topic a bit now, but it still connects with the words that Michael said. So from now, we are going to ask Harald to be on stage. Harald is a seasoned professional speaker, and he coaches founders and leaders to pitch ideas in clear and memorable ways. So Harald, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So one of the things I do, I coach deep tech founders, which is really cool because they have very complex technologies. And my method is usually I ask them to pitch in their own way. I ask a lot of questions from them to elaborate what they're actually doing and all these nuances. And then I present it back to them in a way that could be a more simple and clearer way. And the feedback that I often get is that, oh my God, no one has ever said it so simply about what we do. And that's the key for the next module, helping you to understand how can you communicate your idea in a way that other people would understand it. Because as humans, not only deep tech issues, but as humans, we tend to kind of understand the things that we're doing, but explaining it to others, we need to find words for that. And the best way to do that is to rehearse it, to try it out, to get feedback to that, and to see how others are expressing what you are doing. So today I'm offering some of frameworks that would help you to clarify that. I'll start with a question actually in mind. Your main goal is to get your product out there at the UK market. Is it through NHS or is it through private customers or is it to other companies? But the question is, why aren't customers buying? And I would encourage you to open up the chat as well if you would like to join in. Why aren't customers buying? What are the reasons? Just to type in there, just to get the sense. Why do you feel that the customers are not buying in general? Or why do you feel customers are not buying your current product or service? So use the chat just to wake yourself up to answer the question. Why do you think why customers are not buying? It could be the business customers, it could be others. Why not? Okay, we have no budget for your products this year. Oh, this is a tough one. But of course, this is a good one that you can use universally. If you don't like their product, if you don't understand it, the easy answer will be, sorry, our budget is full. This is a default one. Any other reasons that you've been told why they are not buying? Or do you all get the budget option, like no budget this year? Other option is, I'm not convinced it will be of value to us because we're one of the best at the other thing. So not convinced that this will be valuable for us. They didn't see the value. They didn't believe that it will work out, have the impact. Yes. Or that the market demand has disappeared. People no longer want that. So some of the products maybe were really popular during the pandemic, but once the pandemic was over, no one wants to buy any masks, right? So let's dive in. What are some of the big reasons I see why people are not buying? So one of them is that they often see your product as very similar to the one that they already have. And their question is, it's kind of the same. Why should I switch? Over here is a picture of in 2016 when Tesla introduced the autopilot. That was a really cool feature, actually, because most of the cars kind of look the same and you can do electric cars, but it will still be kind of the same. Okay, some have bigger screens than others, but it's kind of the same. But when they introduced this function, for me, it was like, oh, this is cool. Although I have to be honest, I tried autopilot just 2 days ago, and for the 30 seconds it was engaged, I was already feeling it was driving over some things it shouldn't drive. So it's not quite ready, but on paper it looks really cool, and that's something that creates excitement. So the question for us to ask ourselves is that in our product, what is this next level thing? It shouldn't be hype. We should have some solid value behind it as well. But what's the next level so that we would somehow stand out from the others? The second reason why the customers are not buying is, I saw this picture in LinkedIn about Slack and Microsoft Teams. So this below here is the Slack daily users, and this is Microsoft Teams. And something magical happened in 2019. So what happened is that Microsoft bundled the Teams program with their other existing Office tools. And since most of the Office people are using Microsoft tools anyway, then it kind of comes bundled, it becomes integrated with all the other software. Plus, a third reason is that the IT guys who are making the decision which software we buy, for them, it's easier to buy that solution. And usually, I mean, I don't think anyone has ever been fired because they went the safe way and bought the Microsoft software. Usually you get fired when you buy something that is too experimental and then it fails, and then you get fired. So in business decisions, on the back of their mind, they're thinking that if this thing is risky, if I might get fired because of that, we're not going to buy that. We're going to go for the safe route. Even if some people claim, I'm not actually a fan of neither of these products. I think both of them are kind of like bleh for me. But even if some people claim that Slack in feature-wise is so much better than the Microsoft Teams, still the Teams has won because the system works in a way. So that's the second reason. And the third one is a communication reason. So if your communication is something like this, then it's confusing. And the general rule is if we don't understand what it is, if it's confusing, then we don't buy. So you want to create clarity. And one of the biggest problems when it comes to deep tech companies or health tech, or just recently, I was pitched by one company who is doing some special conductors to restore hydrogen energy, hydrogen power. I can't even recall the exact terminology. It was done in Estonian, the call itself. So they were looking for investors and they were pitching the product and explaining the technical nuances of the product. But I wasn't convinced because they hadn't addressed the big picture for me. And the big picture for me is these three questions. And I would encourage all of you to always think in these three pictures whenever you explain something. There has to be a really clear problem. What you're solving is, if you're not addressing the problem, if you're describing the solution to me, it might happen that you're describing the features. Well, they were describing how those special materials will be used and how effective this thing will be. But I wasn't still clear, what's the problem that you're solving, why it actually matters. And after the solution, it's the question, what will change after that? So if I would kind of take an example of this simple thing that I do if I coach leaders, is that I would say the main problem is that corporate communication, is dead. It doesn't have any life in it. And I often, I do keynotes myself, so I'm invited into a company to deliver a talk. And after I go there an hour before my talk and I listen to what the other conversation is on the stage. And often it's the panel with the CEOs and CTOs and other guys. It's just empty words. There's no life behind that. So I would say it's kind of wasted time, wasted opportunity. It doesn't drive people, it doesn't motivate people, it doesn't get your people inspired. So the solution I do is I coach those leaders to help them to clarify what's the message that has to stand out and how can I say it in a way that people feel it actually. And then what happens is they go on the stage, they deliver their thing. Some part of it might be as usual, but some things really land in people that really resonate with people. And they feel like, we got a really cool CEO. And I really feel I want to put more energy into that project that I'm currently doing. So that's the impact. So always think problem, solution, impact, and make it in different simple words depending who you're pitching that to. because the problems of this national health foundation is very different from a private individual. So always remember to speak in their language. One pitch doesn't work in every cases. Rather, instead, one of the ways that we can actually do it is that we can always think of these 3 or 5 or different ways. Who the people are we want to communicate with, what they're interested in, and what is the message we want them to remember. So Michael had a really nice list of what the current problems are, and I would go to the website of whichever business customer I would be selling or pitching my idea to. I would read their website. I would actually do one thing as well. If it's an important client, I would try to find any recordings, interviews, or podcasts with their CEOs, CTOs, whoever is the decision maker, that I would hear with their own words what they are most struggling with or where they are most aiming for. And with that in mind, if I know what really resonates with them, then I know what kind of message I want to plant into their minds with my presentation, my conversation, my pitch, right? So it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, but if it's business to business, if one customer really means potentially everything to you, then that homework is the key to really speak in their language and to understand what they need. Because if you speak in their language, they will feel that you understand them, and they will feel that they want to have this conversation to the further level. So always think of those different audiences, have a crafted presentations for those different audiences, not the same pitch for everyone. It's a different one you express in a bar or a former classmate if they're asking. There's 3 questions actually on the back of the mind whenever a person is listening to the pitch of your company. And those 3 questions would be, why this? Why this matters? Why should I care? Why this solution is important? And secondly, why now? Why should I jump in and do this now? Because there's many things which we would nod and say, yeah, this would be a good thing. This would be an improvement in the process, but there's no sense of urgency over there. So why we should act now upon it? Why now is the time that we have to start setting it up, because we see something huge might be coming in the upcoming years and we want to get prepared for that. And the third one is, why you? If the other person is listening, if they might have other opportunities, options over there, why you? And one of the things is just to go back to the hydrogen energy storing pitch that I just had a call on recently. I was asking about their competition, what makes them different, and there was another company who received a funding in 45 millions just recently, a year ago, that does the same things. And I'm like, the same company in Estonia doing similar things, and they just received 45 million of funding. I'm not sure if you're going to be the winner over here. I need to understand if you're going to be the winner. And it's not only as an investor you ask that. It's also a question that if I take some kind of a business-to-business solution, I want to know that this product will be fully alive in 5 years or 10 years from now, and this will be the best solution. Because switching is always costful. Switching is always hard. Switching always creates conflicts and other potential things. So switching is expensive. So that's why you are going to be the winning solution. And it has to be trustworthy. Now, often when it comes to pitching, you don't have all the time. Truth to be told, you might have only this 30 or 60 seconds as an elevator pitch that you are on a conference, networking event, or on a call to really get them interested, because that's the key. In this really short time, your goal is not to explain everything about your problem solution and impact. It's about 2 things. Short pitching is about these 2 things that you have to address. One of them is interest, and the other is trust. And these things have to be balanced, because if I'm pitching a very simple solution to you, let's say I'm pitching an orange juice booth, and I'm saying this is freshly squeezed orange on a fair, and you're there with the family. I don't have to work a lot on the trust, because you feel, oh, orange juice, yes, let's have one, couple of euros, nice. But if I would be pitching to you, for example, this new AI technology, like AI assistant that actually reads all of your emails and is able to answer all of your emails with a really good clarity and depth and actually get your work done so you could go on a vacation, then you might say, oh, that's interesting, but I actually don't trust that Harold has it figured out. I don't trust that it actually works. It's kind of like the Tesla autopilot. Wow, this is cool. It would drive by itself. I could go to deliver my keynote and do the slides on the back seat. Oh, that's interesting. But do I trust that actually this thing is able to drive over there? So the bigger the promise, the more you have to be aware, how do I build the trust? But if the promise is really low, then they're simply not interested. The goal of this short pitch is to get the next meeting. The next meeting, is it investor meeting, or is it just an opportunity to take a call and explain 30 minutes in depth what's the science behind our product, how do we actually do it? The goal is to get them to the next meeting. And then you have to ask, what can I share that will create enough interest? And what do I need to share that will also create trust in there? So trust is often created by examples or cases or your existing customers, which you already have. For example, this hydrogen company, they have the Estonian energy company as their main client, which immediately brings trust to them because, oh, they have an existing client who actually buys their solutions already and uses in their power plants. This is a really good element for trust. They don't have to explain any further. I got it covered. This is not just an idea, it's an actually implemented thing. So trust and interest, always balancing over there. And remember, if the more interest you create, the more trust you have to build. Let's dive into those two things. So what creates interest? And I remember, I guess it's like 15 years ago or 17 years ago, I was at one conference and there was this guy who came in from UK and he was a sales trainer and he was a salesman. He introduced this one concept that really struck into my mind. And he used this example of a BMW's seats. So they said that, okay, let's say if I'm selling BMWs in a dealership and let's say there is a feature that it has these super ergonomic, highly functional seats that you can adjust a lot. This is a feature. But a feature is kind of like, okay, whatever, some things on the list. An advantage would be that what does this feature allow the buyer to do? So basically, this allows for a very comfortable ride, and you can customize the chair in a way that your position would be the best. Okay, that's a bit better than the feature. But then he explained that the third level is benefits. And benefits have to be something that really land in to the buyer. Now, for the case of the BMW seats, he was explaining that, let's say, if you're a business owner and you're driving this 3-hour or 2-hour ride from one city to another to get to the investor meeting or the customer sales meeting, then with these seats, after those 2 or 3 hours while driving, with all those massage functions and everything, you will feel rested, you will feel energized, and you will feel ready to go for that meeting. So that's the benefit of those seats. And this example really landed on me to not only understanding the benefits of a car seat, but to recognize that in our products, if we're only selling the features, this might work for the CTO, Chief Technology Officer, because they understand, okay, these features are there. Okay, yes, you have that covered. But you need advantages to explain what will be the impact that their company, their organization will have with your solution. But most of all, usually decision makers are human beings. And if you're able to press the right buttons about the benefits, how it will improve the dynamics in their organization, how it will improve the lives of their customers, their patients, and therefore their net promoter score of their institution, then if they really connect, they really see the story, the narrative, that's when they make the decision of, okay, I'm interested, I'm in, let's negotiate about the price now, right? But if they don't understand the benefits, the advantages over there, it will just be a list of features. But I mean, think about it. Think about when you're buying the software And there's like tons of features over there, but most of them are not relevant to you. Then it's just noise. But if it really explains you in this, you open a website, you have this one sentence over there. What does it enable you to do? So, for example, one of the companies I saw here was about breast screening. Just a really cool idea for all the participants. Next time when you go to a webinar, add your company's name after your name. This is an opportunity for others to kind of see who you are, what you're doing. So they use this AI solution to do breast screening, and you don't have to use an expert for that. I understand you can do it with your phone. So that's the value proposition that I didn't dive into details. I just quickly looked at the website during this webinar here, and I understand the value proposition is that you could basically do the screening without going to a doctor's meeting. And this is a nice value proposition, right? And being aware of that. So this is the interest side, but the other side is trust. And when it comes to trust, they're looking for proof, they're looking for numbers, they're looking for good arguments. Why should we trust you? So in arguments, there's this structure of a good argument. If you claim something and let's say you claim that, if you claim that your medical solution is the easiest, the most customer-friendly solution available on the market now. That's your claim. But you need some kind of a proof to that, right? So one of the ways to explain that is that, let's say we did those surveys, we received, people tried these different devices, and our devices were rated 2 points higher than the others on the sense of usability. And maybe you could use a proof of specific kind of quotes from expert institutions who gave this certification. This is very user-friendly, this is very skin-friendly, whatever. Facts. Point is, proof is facts. And then you come to the conclusion. That's why our solution is the most user-friendly on the marketplace. And if that really lands on them, then if they kind of buy this fact, then immediately you are somehow better than the other alternatives. Then you're no longer competing for the price, because if you're at the same level, then the only way to stand out is that we are cheaper. But cheaper is a way you can only go if you have a really good technology that enables you to make it something much more effective. But otherwise, you have to have some kind of an advantage that you bring out, and you better have some data, because often those advantages, they are kind of subjective. But for subjective advantages, you need some data that really lands in and explains that claim and gives the proof. Otherwise, you think you build trust, but they just thought that you were hyping. Hyping meaning that you promised something that wasn't actually there. Now, all the communication can land in 3 different levels. And one of the things that kind of makes me most angry in corporate communication is that, especially in most of the meetings, they only land on this level, which is information, which is just sharing knowledge. Oh, our current report is that we have this amount of these things, da, 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 da. The problem with communication that only lands on knowledge level is that this could have been an email. This could have been an email, right? Why do we speak to explain that? Why do we present that result? I could write 3 lines in an email, everybody knows that. When we are communicating, I would encourage all of us, is it a sales meeting? Is it just our team meeting? Always aim for at least this level, which is inspiration. Not just information, but inspiration, which means that you somehow positively try to move the attitude of people towards something. But there's even a 3rd level, which I would call transformation. And this means there is a behavioral change. So basically, it means you explain about your company and people are like, okay, this is a nice device. It has these features. Inspiration is often you share a story how your product changed a life of your customer and how it improved them. By the way, if you watch the Apple event, in the beginning, I didn't watch the full event, but in the beginning, they had these real life stories, how the Apple Watch saved people from the car crash or a heart attack or that kind of thing. That was really inspiring. By the way, I'm a Samsung guy, so for a Samsung guy, that was inspiring. That's actually that Apple does really well, their storytelling. And truth to be told, Samsung's marketing is crap. Their devices are good, but marketing is, I don't get it, kind of. But Apple really nails that. Real life stories, real people doing real things and how it impacts their lives. But the problem with inspiration is that we've been inspired before and it kind of faded away in time. So whenever you get people excited about your solution, then if they're not taking any action or steps, then this inspiration will fade in time. So always think, what is the behavior I would encourage them to take? And how can I make this behavior as simple as possible? So behavior could be for them to sign up for your demo. Behavior could be to come to some kind of event where they could try it out, or whichever the case is. And how can I make it really compelling and really easy for them? So always think, whenever you get the stage, whenever you can present your idea, think about what's the next step I want them to do after this presentation, and how can I make it really compelling and really easy for them to do it? Because that's how the behavior changes. How can I make the right step easier for them? Now, the tricky part is that it's kind of hard to know what makes those people act. I would actually use this metaphor that we as humans, we have this complex center inside of ourselves. And if you press the right buttons, then we get fired up and we do something. We make the buying decision, right? The question is, which buttons should I press? So rookies, beginners, try to press every button, all the features that our product has. Hopefully, maybe some button will land. But the problem is that if you press all of the buttons or try to press them, you create confusion and you might create mistrust. Because if your product does all those 10 things, it's like a Swiss knife, then it's not exactly really good. It's not the best solution for any of those one among those 10 things, right? So which of those buttons should I press? And there's 3 components here to keep in mind, what people are kind of subconsciously seeking for when they are listening to you, when they are on a meeting with you, when they first time see your pitch or meet you. They are looking for these 3 components. First of all, trust. Can I trust them? Can I trust this person? This is a subconscious process. It's about how the person speaks. It's about how confident they are. If they claim something, how they sound. By the way, if you're not the professional actors, then lying is something when others probably see. If you say, we have huge traction, but you say, we have huge traction, your hands are shaking, your voice is kind of trembling, they might feel that, okay, this guy is bluffing. So can I trust them? Second one is, does it make sense? What they're telling, the problem, solution, change, does it make sense? Is it believable that their solution actually will change? They discovered a new method to discover some kind of a cure. Do I believe that this new method will work? And the third one is emotion. Does it move me? And people are different. So that means that they have different elements that are dominant. Some people focus more on the reasoning. Some people are there in the audience and kind of sense, does it connect with me? Do I kind of vibe with this person? Do I want this dream to become alive, right? So it depends who your audience is. But if you're doing really important pitching one-on-one, I would encourage, try to find video interviews of that person to sense who they are. Hear in their words, what kind of words they are using. Are they more of reasoning, or are they more of like these playful metaphors or emotions? Or you could do that in a meeting as well to kind of try to sense them. Then you know which of those buttons I have to press really clearly. So on the back of their mind, these are the things that they are seeking for. And if you're able to show them, then this just might work out. So 3 key buttons to press. Let's dive in. If you're going to prepare your pitch, let's say you have a couple of minutes to present your idea. And some of the ways where we as founders can take the stage is sometimes when you're, let's say, on a conference, you're presenting your result. It's an opportunity also to pitch your company. Sometimes maybe you're doing a radio interview about the new solution you figured out. It's an opportunity to pitch your company, right? Or you're on a meeting with a potential customer. It's an opportunity to pitch your company. Now, how to structure that, how to prepare for that is one of the ways to prepare. I like this saying from the late Stephen R. Covey, is that first seek to understand and then to be understood. So one of the ways was that you try to think who these audiences are, what they are interested in, and then you try to really narrow down, okay, what's the key part that really would resonate with them? And one of the methods, very specific practical takeaway I would encourage you to use is that whenever you're preparing to investor pitch or sales pitch, whichever the occasion is, try to predict the questions. Have them written down in a Google Drive document and be like this devil's advocate who tries to take your idea down, tries to find the weak points over there. What kind of questions would you ask if you would be on the other side of the table? And how would you then answer those questions if those questions arrive? I would claim that by predicting and writing, having a written answer to them will get you much more prepared that when similar questions come, you will be confidently able to respond to them, which in the end means that they will perceive you as much more confident person and kind of your business as something that is more likely to succeed. So really nail those Q&A sessions. I've seen so many who are really good, really well rehearsed on the stage, but then the Q&A lands in and they're like, oh, didn't see that coming. But you could have seen that coming, probably, right? So predicting those questions and having them in your mind, which will also help you to craft your pitch in a way that you address some of those questions already inside of your pitch. You don't need to address them in the Q&A if you can craft them into the story. There's 3 questions, whatever your occasion is when you have to communicate. Radio interview, pitching your product, or perhaps writing some kind of a email that you want people to act upon. These are 3 questions that I would encourage you to always think through in each occasion. The first one is, why do I speak? What do I want the listeners to do as a result of my speech? So when I finish, what do I want them to do? Second, to whom am I speaking and what matters to them? Or to whom should I be speaking? Maybe there's a better audience that I should attend and address. And the third one is, what do I have to show them or persuade them in so that they would do what I asked them to do? What do I have to show them? So if it's a really big institution, as Michael brought the list of what the NHS is looking for, you go through that list, you really figure out what those components are there, and you think what I want them to do. And then what do I have to show them that they would understand that my solution will help them to get what they want? Now, there's different ways to structure your pitch, but I want to offer a really simple way to remember that. Think of it like an airplane. An airplane takes off, it stays in the air, and then it lands. And that's the same way. If you have 60 seconds or 3 minutes to present your idea, to open up in a call to explain what you're doing. So one of the ways is that the first step is making us care. That's the plane taking off. The beginning has to be the strongest, and usually what makes people care about the most is if you address the problem in the beginning, a problem that really relates to them, and they feel that, okay, I have this problem, you have a solution that I want to learn how it works. In the second phase, you explain your solution, how it works, and you do it in a way that is building trust and helping them to really clearly understand how this solution works and how it stands out from the others. And in the end, there should be some kind of a call to action. If you're in the middle of a meeting, then basically your call to action is a way to get them to ask questions from you to open up the conversation, to dive in more, right? To motivate them to really engage into the conversation. If it's a pitch on an event, on a stage, then your call to action might just be the next step that you want to do. And now here's a little tool that I encourage founders to use. And this tool, I will also add the link here to the chat. Meeting group chat. Yes. So there is this thing I call the pitch canvas. I will explain it on the screen, but I will paste this PDF in a chat here so that it will be easier for you to open it up and kind of zoom in and dive in there. Basically, what it does is that it takes these 3 questions that I just mentioned, which is the why. Why do I communicate? Why do I pitch my idea? Why do I do this sales call? What do I want to get as a result of that? So that's the why. And then the second part is what do I need to tell them to convince them? What do I need to explain them so that they will be interested and they would trust me, right? And the third one is how can I tell it in a way that they really understand it, that they really remember it? So that's kind of the why, that's the what, and that's the how I do the talk. And this is the playground here where things get interesting, because this is where you can use stories, metaphors, analogies to really build in. And why stories work is because people remember stories. And why they remember stories is because if they imagine a story at the moment, they engage their imagination, they have the pictures in their mind, and usually, I guess the best stories to share is the client success stories, how your technology already helped someone. They had a problem, how your solution solved it, and what's the impact, what's the change that they had. So one of the key things about those stories is that the best stories are the ones that embody change over time. Because not all stories are created equal. I mean, let's face it, we could just share stories, what you did during the lunch or what you did on the weekend. But if there's no transformation in that story, then this story kind of doesn't land. It doesn't make an impact. The other person would be like, why are you telling me this story, right? So someone in the story has to change. Did you change because of that? For example, it could be that starting from that moment, you started to see things differently, that this one moment happened, or with your client, you switched something and they changed. Or it could be, for example, stories that first you met this client who was really critical about your product. They weren't convinced. They thought that this is a bluff, this doesn't work, da 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 da. But then they tried it out, then they did a trial, and then they realized that, oh my God, it actually works. And then they had some kind of aha moment where they really expanded and became a fan of you. So these always think that the story has to have some kind of a change or transformation. And usually what resonates with the other people are the stories of similar people as them. So for example, if you're selling to CTO of a company, a story of another CTO who was skeptical in the beginning, tried it out, got a really good result, is a really good way of actually building this idea into their mind that you should try it out. It's worth it. It could work for you as well, right? So people are more acceptable to stories, especially if we're telling a story of a third person or ourselves, then we're not telling them that they have to do or that they have to change, but they feel that they can choose if they want to try that out as well. I think that's the interesting magic, because if you're trying to sell them and then explain them that they really need that product, they have to get it, then they feel that this is too aggressive. I'm willing to find any kind of arguments to say that, no, I don't need that. They're kind of like pushing back. But if you're telling a story of another customer who pushed back in the beginning, but then you tried out something and they realized that this works really well, then you're playing the same game in their mind. So that's the cool thing about stories. By the way, one really cool book about, oh, I use a green screen, so it works a bit different here. But Story Cell by Matthew Dix. Well, it's actually a cool effect. It's a yellow yellow book. This is a good read if you really want to dive into stories. And why this is a good read is because Matthew Dix is he's a really good storyteller. Seriously, he can tell really compelling stories out of ordinary everyday events. And that's why it's really good to learn from them. We might not have time to use those stories in our everyday pitch, but if you have a 30-minute or 60-minute one-on-one meeting, stories are the ones that the other side of the table will remember after that 60-minute meeting. If you nail that craft, you will be remembered, because the worst thing is not to be remembered. It was just the guy pitching their thing and I can't even remember what their name was, right? So whoever wants to go to Storyland, dive in over there. But in the story sense, I want to bring a couple of things. One of them is the narrative. One of the mistakes I often see is the narrative of founders trying to see them as someone, perhaps they are not in the story. Maybe you're familiar with the Star Wars. So Star Wars is a movie where this evil guy comes in and says, I'm going to destroy the universe. And then this handsome guy says, I'm going to save the universe. I'm going to destroy the evil villain. By the way, the evil villain is his dad. Bloopers. But he's not tough enough to overcome the villain. He needs the help of this not so handsome guy, which is the guide, who basically says, use the force, dude. He's like, okay, uses the force, overcomes the villain, and saves the universe. I just saved 2.5 hours of your life by not having to watch this movie. But the point here is now. Where are you in this story? Obviously, you're not the villain. The villain is the problem that you're solving. The villain is the evil thing that has come. But too many founders in their pitch tell the story in a way that they are the hero. Our product is the hero and will revolutionize or whatever. But the problem is that in the minds of the people, what really motivates the listeners is that if they feel that they could become the hero. So truth to be told, a better narrative is that the villain is the problem, your product is the guide, not the handsome guy, and the listener, your client, is the hero. How they will overcome their problem with your solution. That's the narrative that has to really land in. And if you're able to craft that in a good way, that's where things get an impact. But if you're too much saying that our product is the hero, then you're kind of not engaging them part of the story. I mean, a better story would be that if they apply your solution in their company, they will be able to overcome that big issue, and probably they will get the raise, right? Or whatever the good benefit is that they're aiming for, or save their own corporate universe, as one might say. So that's a simple way. One big idea I really want you to land in with the storytelling is, remember, your customer should be the hero of the story. Or if you're sharing stories of your previous customers, then showing how they became a hero by using your product. That's what needs to land in the mind. A couple of other simplifying elements that I always encourage to people have in their either website or in their pitch is make things simple in a way that you would be able to explain your complex solution with 3 pictures. I like this one. Years ago, I took a screenshot when it was still Taxify, not Bolt in Estonia, and they were introducing this amazing ride-sharing thing, which for many Americans was very ordinary thing by that time, but not in Estonia. So it was a new service, and to explain how it works, there was just these 3 pictures. You request a ride, you will see when the taxi comes, it will take you to the place, and then you will rate the driver and pay for that. 1, 2, 3. Very clear picture. You could explain the same thing in really complex manner, how servers work or how information goes, who sees what, but these 3 simple pictures help people to get it. My invitation to you is on your website, in your presentations, in your pitch, do think of the way, how can 3 simple pictures explain what we are doing and what's the impact of that? Because if there's no clarity, if there's confusion, people are not buying. But if they get it, then they get more questions of how it works and everything. By the way, for a public communication, there's one fun method that we could use. I call it the granny test. The reason why I call it the granny test, my grandmother has passed away, but I remember when I went to the countryside, and usually grandmother was like cooking some potatoes and pancakes and everything. And she was always really open to listen what I was doing. So how is it going and how everything is. And if I were to explain to my granny what I'm doing, I'm not going to use any complex word. I mean, just imagine if I was in some like cryptocurrencies area and would confuse her with blockchain or whatever things is. That would be like super confusing for a granny. But instead, I say it in a very simple way. What is it that I do? Basically, I go on the stage, I move people with words so they wouldn't be stuck anymore, so they would be able to overcome their problems. And then I bring a couple of examples of simple ways how I do it. And then Granny says, oh, that's nice. Any more pancakes? And a point here is that I believe that you have amazing products that you have, amazing solutions, but they might be really complex. And if you would be on a networking event with people who are not in your industry, let's say an example, your old classmates are coming together and they're asking, so what are you doing? How do you in a simple way explain them what you're doing and what's the value that you're giving? So rehearse that. Try to become the person who is able to explain complex things to really regular, simple people in a simple language, because I believe when it comes to marketing, that's the key. Unless you're very enterprise to enterprise business and you don't have to inspire the end users. But if there's any end users involved, whoever is able to communicate well enough is someone who will get a head start compared to the others with their complex solutions, even if their technology is not as good as the other ones. Couple of more reminders for simplicity. Whenever you're pitching your idea on a, let's say you go to a startup competition to raise some money or get some attention from the investors, just one reminder for slides. Every slide has to earn its place in the deck. So once you have it covered, then ask under every slide, if I would remove that, would it significantly suffer? If not, remove it. And just in a mind, to keep in a mind, what I see working with mostly scientists is that they tend to pack a lot of things on one slide, which means things get super complicated. Okay, I understand they want you to see the big picture, but do remember there's animations for that. Do not show all the millions components at one moment, because with animations, you can direct the attention of your listener. If you can't make it simple, like 1, 2, 3, then make sure you use animations, right? But every slide has to earn its place in the deck. By the way, if you get too many slides, they will be leading you, and you will be telling less stories probably. And people don't remember slides. They remember stories, examples, something that really moved them somehow emotionally. That's why it matters. Couple of extra tips for the voice side. I would say every one of us has a vocal image. So before that, I said it's information, inspiration, transformation. Information could have been an email. Why did we need your voice? Because your voice is something that can project emotion. And when it comes to voice, a couple of things to keep in mind. I want you to think of a vocal image that you have. And when you go to SoundCloud to listen to music, there's this like image of that song, and you see how it changes. That's the same way you ought to use your voice to make it more playful, to make it more interesting, more engaging. And it's usually these elements we can use: pacing, your pitch, is it high or low, the tone of your voice, and the volume. If you're excited, it's high. If it's really thought-provoking, then it's lower. One of the ways to rehearse using your voice, if you have kids, I have 2 little kids, I read them every evening before they go to bed. Reading bedtime stories is a really good way to become more conscious of how do you read, how do you use pauses, how do you become more playful in your voice. And truth to be told, if your voice is more attractive, if it's more interesting, people feel they want to listen to you more. And that's your decision to take on that training. Now, often we fill this track with that kind of things like, like, you know, and you name it. One of the ways to overcome those, because what these are showing is if people are too much, then I usually think they are not really confident or they're not really clear what they're doing. So they might be, but subconsciously we use those fillers because we think that someone might take over our conversation. So just to give them a note that I haven't been finished, we fill them in. But we don't need them. It's a distraction. So one of the ways to overcome them is replace them with a pause, with a silence. And by the way, if there is a most important feature that your product has and you mention it, after that, make a pause. Let them land in. Because if you would immediately go to the next feature, they're like, okay, oh, there's this one. Pause shows where you landed with an idea, where it's time to kind of ponder a bit on the impact of your words. And if you want to sound richer, then stretch. Any kinds of ways, especially when you think that some people are really alive on the stage or sound really well, the key is they do more stretching. Before the Zoom meeting, whichever conversation is, if it's an important meeting, do some kind of a stretching so that it would kind of open up your body, because if your body is stiff, and if you sit in a stiff way, then you're more likely to speak in a stiff way. And if it's not engaging, then people don't feel they want to tune back in for that. So stretching could be one of the keys. And one of the recommendations, if you have a standing desk, if you see currently, I was sitting in the first half, but if it's my turn, I'm standing up. So I know that my body will be more open. My body language will be more live. And one thing you noticed, instead of using screen sharing, I used a more complex solution. You don't have to go there, but basically I made sure that I will be in your attention as well. The slides are not the main attention. And actually, when people are buying from people, if you're doing screen sharing, then all they hear is your voice. And if your voice is kind of monotone and kind of doubting, then I don't know, the full package isn't kind of making them feel that, wow, this is a powerful thing. One more bonus, especially men. Men want to sound like Morgan Freeman, and they're asking, how can I sound like Morgan Freeman? So one of the interviewers asked Morgan Freeman, how can we sound like you? And Morgan said, you got to yawn a lot. And yawning means, and the key over there is that if you're stiff, if you're tense, then your sound starts to become this higher. But if you become really relaxed, then your sound becomes lower. And in general, people tend to perceive the person with a lower voice with someone with more authority. Everyone in health tech, you probably know this one startup, Theranos, where the CEO, female CEO, was speaking like this, and everyone felt like, oh my God, this is a really solid CEO. But it came out their actually product wasn't working. So that's actually one of the things, whoever is hyping things like that, they're always thinking, I hope it's not the next Theranos, right? So on the back of their minds, they might have a lot of these questions. Book recommendation would be TED Talks, a really good way, plus Storycell, a good way. Plus, if you're into numbers, check out the narrative and numbers. If you're raising money, this is a more solid one for there. My key reminder for you is that we as human beings, we connect with each other. And I believe that every person that we meet is an opportunity to learn and really to connect. Communication is a magic where the winner is not who is able to speak the most complex ways. The winner is the one who is able to speak about really complex things in a simple ways. We can use stories for that. We can simplify things in 3 images. We can really clarify, separate the problem, the solution, and the change it had to really help them to understand. And I guess most importantly, if it's not a presentation, if it's one-on-one conversation, start to really sense the other person. Is it time to explain more? Or is it time to open up for questions to them? Because sometimes I see people are so excited, they are always explaining, but the other person would like to ask a question. If it's a conversation, to dive in there. If it's a presentation, predict those questions in advance address them already before they arise, and do your magic on the stage. And if possible, I would encourage you, if you do Zoom meeting pitching, try to somehow record them. Maybe just screen sharing or whichever the thing is that the other part doesn't see that you record it, but record it for yourself so that you could look back to that and see how you appeared over there and ask yourself, okay, what landed well and what can I change? What specific things can I change to become more of that person that I aim for? With that in mind, happy rehearsing and use every opportunity that you meet with those people to not only speak, but to receive feedback from them as well, because that's how you get better.
Thank you so much, Harald. Your words really are inspiring. We had a great stretch here and having a lot of pressure now, for sure, to pitch my last slide. But I will remove you from the spotlight from now on and will share my screen to give you some more details about the next steps of the project. I hope you can see my screen well. So as I mentioned before, the application period ends in the 11th of November at 5 p.m. Estonian time. And in the second part of November, we are going to select the enterprises with a committee. In the December to January 2025, we are going to develop the project plan with the project partners. We are going to put together exact dates and activities. We are going to do this framework for the dates and activities. And also during that time, we are going to map the enterprise's goals. So we are going to have one-on-ones with each enterprise that will participate in the project. We will put together, we will talk through the goals, the needs, the preferences, the help that they need, and the possible mentors that they could use during the expert processes. From the February next year to July, the personalized thematic webinars will take place for the market preparation. There are nine thematic webinars altogether, so 3 per each target location. And at the same time, the coaching will be provided in parallel. And we are planning the first business mission in July 2025 to US, and probably will visit the Boston Bio Conference in that same business mission as well. The UK mission will probably take part in the second part of the next year. Yes. So, if you have any questions about the project, feel free to connect me or the partner from your country. Please give us some feedback so we can make these webinars and seminars better. You can take a picture of the QR code and fill in the form. It should take about 2 minutes. So your feedback is very important, and this is the only way we can improve. Here are the contact details, and once again, the application form to be part of the amazing project that we are doing. And that's it. Here is once again the feedback QR. So feel free to take a picture, and we are very happy for both the insights, negative and positive. So as I told already, this is the great way for us to improve. So do anyone have any more questions at the moment? If you have, then you can open your mic or write them into the chat bot. If not, if you will have them later, as I said already, you can write to me or any of the other partners. I will send you a follow-up email during tomorrow where you will have the recording of the webinar, the feedback link, the application link, and also the link to the second US webinar, which will be taking place on Friday. But I
I
guess,
was
yeah.
very briefly going to mention, as Harold did, very good presentation about the information, inspiration, transformation. I very briefly explained last night what I saw. I'm based in London. What I saw, how it worked in action, and it's 3 basics. So went to my local gym, and the way they onboard new customers, it's just so streamlined. It's unbelievably efficient. So first they sit you down, they take a couple of points. Oh, you want to lose weight? Oh, you want to become a gym bro? You want more muscle? You want to look very fit? And with that, you want to obviously be very happy and very confident and all the rest of it. So they take a couple of information points. Then they take you inside the yoga room. Then they take you where the weights room is. You see all these people huffing and puffing away, clearly, sweating a lot, trying to become fit. That's the inspiration part. And they sell you the idea that if you become a member here, you will become a part of this inspirational story. And then they take you back, they sit you down. That's the transformation part. And then, of course, the other way you sell your product is through through our product you save so much money. And then, of course, they have this amazing package available which expires tomorrow. So you sign up today, and I just saw how efficient it is. And 8 out of 10 customers will leave. The ones who sat down, they've given that signature and they are part of that story. So how you streamline your information, inspiration, transformation, it's very simple, but it's complete key.
Thank you for that. Also, Andreas, I saw that you have a hand. Would you like to ask a question as well?
Thank you. I mean, first of all, I'd like to just thank everyone and Technopol, because as far as this type of event goes, I think this series stands out to me as like the most relevant content-wise, and in terms of actual presentations, of course, Harald was fantastic and very easy to listen to. So inspiring also in a way. You immediately start thinking about your slide decks and how you have to make some cuts, right? But I guess I will be sending some questions to individual speakers, and so I've already had a great benefit since the past webinar as well on the UK. So just a huge thanks to everyone involved in arranging this. And on top of that, you have this project where you select companies that can even have some funding. That's fantastic. I guess what I wasn't sure of is, have I already applied my company? I'm not sure. So I guess I'd like to confirm that if possible.
Okay, I will confirm it to you personally, but everyone who has applied should get the email that you have. We have got your application, and yeah, did you get the email back?
I guess I just I'm not aware of the timeline, like when it opened up.
Yeah. Okay, I will look it through personally, and I will write an email for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. And thanks for the great words. It's always great to have good feedback. Okay, any other questions, feedback? Okay, then we can end 1 minute earlier. Oh, it's 4 p.m. now.
No, I was just going to say thank you and bye. Nothing more.
Thank you everyone for participating, and I will send you a follow-up email tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.